Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Vienna. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to sincerely thank the young researchers in Archaeometry group for inviting me to speak today. My name is Pamela Fragnoli, and I am the head of the ceramic laboratory within the unit for archaeological sciences, which was established quite recently at the Austrian Archaeological Institute after OeAI. Today, I will be talking about this new unit and about my work. Officially, the unit was established in May 2024, so a little bit more than 1 year ago, following the merger and relocation of the three former archaeological institutes into Otto Wagner's Postsparkasse building, which is, as you can see on this slide, remarkable example of Viennese Jugendstil architecture. The Unit for Archaeological Sciences works in close collaboration with colleagues across the OeAI. The unit brings together state-of-the-art instruments supported by extensive reference collections and leading specialists in both organic and inorganic archaeomaterials. And this achievement was made possible through the dedication and vision of our late executive director, Sabine Ladstätter, whose leadership laid the foundation for what we are very proud to present today. The unit is organized into 4 distinct laboratories, each defined by the materials they analyze or the methods they apply. The Bioarchaeology Lab is led by Andreas Heiss and Alfred Gallik. Alexandra Rodler-Norbo heads the Geochemistry Lab. The Lithic Lab is directed by Michael Brandl, and I have myself the pleasure of leading the Ceramic Lab. I will now briefly present the research focus of each lab. The Bioarchaeology Lab investigates the interactions between human and the environment using biogenic materials and methods from biological anthropology, archaeozoology, and archaeobotany. Research focuses of the lab include the archaeology of food remains, the history of fish and fisheries, and the biological and social identities of infants. And all these focuses are explored across multiple regions and time periods. The Geochemistry Lab primarily uses trace element and stable isotope analysis of ancient pigments to investigate workshop organization, trade networks, and also parallels with metallurgy and glass production. An additional focus is also the development of sampling protocols based on techniques borrowed from conservation and restoration science. The Lithic Lab focuses on resource management, provenance, and processing of stone tools to address socioeconomic questions, mainly in prehistoric societies from Central Europe, Balkan regions, and Western Asia. The main methods include stereomicroscopy, petrography, mineralogy, and geochemistry. All the OeAI laboratories are located on the 5th floor of the main building, where the analytical facilities occupy a central position and share space with the conservation lab. This slide shows the range of analytical devices which are available in our labs. We are particularly well equipped in microscopy with several Keyence digital microscopes, which are used for high-resolution imaging of zooarchaeological and archaeobotanical remains, as well as for analyzing and exploring technological and use-wear traces on ceramics and metals. In addition, we have several polarizing microscopes for the mineralogical and petrographic characterization of ceramics, mortars, and stones in thin section. Among our portable instruments, which are especially useful in cases involving export restrictions or conservation concerns, we have several portable X-ray fluorescence devices used for the preliminary geochemical characterization of inorganic materials and for selecting representative samples for laboratory analysis. We also use a Fourier transform infrared spectrometer, which is particularly effective for detecting organic substances used as binders in pigments or related to food practices in ceramic vessels. Our benchtop instruments below on the slide include gas chromatography mass spectrometry used for organic residue analysis in pottery, soils, and plasters, as well as X-ray diffraction, which helps identify mineralogical phases in inorganic materials, which is useful, for example, for determining firing temperatures, characterizing clay sources used in pottery production, or so for analyzing corrosion products on metals. We also operate a multi-collector inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer for stable isotope analysis of pigments, metals, and glass. And finally, scanning electron microscope, which is used to study surface treatments, use wear traces, and firing temperatures in pottery. Our facilities also include a wet lab for sample preparation and acid digestion, equipped with an ultra-pure water system, 2 digesters, a laboratory dishwasher, a precision balance, a centrifuge, a circular shaker, a ball mill, heating plates, and other essential tools for our sample preparation. Importantly, the Unit for Archaeological Sciences also maintains extensive reference collections that support both research and teaching. These include collections of ceramics, lithics, and marble, as well as botanical and osteological remains. The archaeobotanical collection comprises thousands of seeds and fruits, along with hundreds of woods and mosses from Central Europe and the Mediterranean. The archaeozoological collection, covering the same regions, features thousands of mammal, bird, reptile, and especially freshwater and marine fish skeletons. The ceramic collection I am responsible for includes ceramics, clay samples, and related analytical data from Austria, Italy, Balkans, Greece, Asia Minor, and Western Asia, spanning from the Neolithic up to the medieval period. Some of these collections, such as those for ceramics and marble, have been fully digitized using the Axel Collections database, and efforts are ongoing to make them soon openly accessible. Alongside its own research initiatives, as said at the beginning, the Unit for Archaeological Sciences works also closely with all 3 archaeological departments and their associated research groups, which are all outlined on this slide. The unit is also actively engaged with other cross-departmental research units such as digital archaeology and classics and heritage sciences, especially in the areas of data management and conservation. Of course, we cannot be entirely self-sufficient, and therefore we rely on a strong local VMAs network. In particular, we collaborate with the University of Vienna's Research Network for Human Evolution and Archaeological Sciences, the so-called HIAS, which focuses on paleogenomics, paleoproteomics, radiocarbon dating, and geoarchaeology. We also work closely with the Vienna Institute for Archaeological Science, the VIAS, in the areas of archaeometallurgy, and with the Triga Center at the Technical University of Vienna for trace element analysis using neutron activation. And now we will move closer to my area of specialization, that means ceramic analysis. I would like to begin with a brief overview of the raw materials used to produce ceramics, because their very special material properties mattered both in the past for making and using pottery and in the present, since they allow ceramics to be preserved for thousands of years and studied by archaeologists and archaeological scientists. Essentially, ceramics are an artificial mixture of clay and sand transformed through churn, so it is a pyrotechnological craft. The clay matrix and the sand inclusions can often be seen quite clearly in the cross-section of any relatively coarse ceramic shard, even with the naked eye, as you can see below on the slide. Unlike raw materials for metal production, for instance, ceramic raw materials are widely available in most regions of the globe, and this meant that ancient communities could typically source them locally, often from areas very close to their settlements, around a few kilometers around sites. Clay looks like buds, but from a geological perspective, it is a fine-grained, loose sedimentary rock, which has formed through the chemical and mechanical weathering of previous igneous, metamorphic, or sedimentary rocks. In nature, clay deposits can often be identified by characteristic drying cracks, like you can see on the left on the slide. These cracks form when clay-rich sediments shrink due to the reduction in the water content. Another simple test to check whether a sediment contains any clay amount is to take a small piece of what we assume to be clay, add water, and try to shape it into a ball or a coil. If it holds its shape, the sediment likely contains a significant amount of clay. Clay minerals have a characteristic layered structure composed of polyhedra arranged side by side and stacked on top of each other. And the nodes of these polyhedral shapes are primarily occupied by atoms of oxygen, aluminium, and zinc, while water molecules are often found between these layers of polyhedral shape. So chemically, clay minerals are hydrous aluminum phyllosilicates. The peculiar layered crystal structure of clay minerals, along with the presence of water between the layers, gives its characteristic mechanical and material properties. So when water is added to the clay before firing, the layers of this particular crystal structure can move independently and slide over one another, making the clay highly plastic. And this allows artifacts to be easily shaped and reshaped into a variety of forms. It gives an increased, very high versatility as material before firing. During farming, the water added for shaping, but also the water located between the layers in the crystal structure of clay is removed. And this loss of water leads to irreversible changes with a gain in hardness and resistance. And this means that, on the one hand, the fired clay object can no longer be reshaped, and contrary to other types of materials like metals and glass. But on the other hand, however, this means also that the fired clay object becomes suited for a wide range of uses for cooking over fire, storing woods, or transporting materials, and can be preserved for thousands of years thanks to this gain in hardness, resistance, and stability gained through the farming. So, to sum up, thanks to its unique material properties, ceramics are the most commonly found artifacts in archaeological excavation. And these properties, combined with the widespread availability of the raw materials, as we said before, made ceramics one of the oldest and most versatile artificial materials in human history. Ceramics indeed include not only vessels used for storing, processing, and consuming food, but also a wide range of other functional objects. These range from loom weights and spindle wheels for textile production to molds and crucible for metal and glass working, as well as bricks and tiles used in building and decorating structures. Ceramic objects were also used, for instance, for administrative purposes, such as tablets and ceilings, and in ritual and domestic contexts, including figurines and endeavors. So for all these reasons, ceramics have played a crucial role throughout human history and continue to do so today. They remain, in fact, the subject of technological innovation across diverse fields, from medicine to electronics. So overall, ceramic analysis deserves attention because of its foundational, relevant statistical strengths, cross-thematic insight, and present-day relevance. But what exactly does ceramic analysis involve? It consists of applying methods borrowed from the natural sciences to ancient ceramics in order to assess their mineralogical, chemical, and physical properties. And these assessments, in turn, allows us to investigate key aspects such as dating, provenance, manufacturing techniques, usage patterns, and the state of preservation. So in other words, ceramic analysis helps us answer questions like when, where, how, and for what purpose were ceramics made, what burial conditions did they undergo, and how can we extend their life cycle in the present. Its field of application is thus quite broad and provides valuable insights into the economic and socio-cultural dimension of past communities, including exchange networks, craft organization, technological traditions, and food-related practices. The most significant contributions of ceramic analysis concern three main spheres: provenance, technology, and use. These three spheres should not be treated as isolated categories, but rather understood as interconnected and somehow mutually dependent. The nature of the raw materials influences indeed manufacturing techniques, which in turn reflect production traditions typical of a specific region. Furthermore, both the selection and processing of raw materials affect the functional performance of the finished vessels. The most effective approaches are those that assess and correlate as many of these aspects as possible, with the goal of shedding light on the entire life cycle of the object. So in other words, ideal approaches are holistic. They combine different analytical methods to characterize the material's full range of properties. They integrate multiple scales of observation from microscopic to macroscopic, and they draw upon various sources of information, including previous scholarly work. This integrated knowledge helps create a more comprehensive understanding of ceramic artifacts under study. As you can see from this slide, provenance, technology, and use can be investigated using a wide range of analytical methods that, when combined, provide more comprehensive information. So for each of these aspects, preliminary insights can often be gained directly on site through macroscopic observation or with the help of simple lenses and stereomicroscopes. And these initial observations are significant as they provide a first impression of the available material and then guide the selection of representative samples for further analysis in the laboratory, keeping in mind that sampling is destructive. Laboratory analysis can then confirm and expand, of course, upon these preliminary observations. To complete the pictures, raw materials from the area surrounding the archaeological site can also be collected and used as comparative material in experimental procedures. However, sometimes we must rely on limited methods or even single analytical methods due to restricted funding or sample availability. And in such cases, especially when focusing on coarse wares, ceramic petrography performed with the help of a polarizing microscope and thin section is often a priority. It is relatively cost-effective and offers comprehensive insights into the entire manufacturing sequence, including provenance, technological choices, and even the positional process. And now I would like to briefly present the ceramic lab at the Austrian Archaeological Institute. Aside from myself, the ceramic lab includes two PhD researchers, Rosa Kroko and Alice Kleinschek, and two MA students, Violetta Tenchar and Marie-Therese Schmidt. Our work focuses on assessing the material properties of a wide range of clay-based artifacts and also structures. We study aspects such as production organization, exchange networks, consumption practices, and cross-craft interaction. Our approach is diachronic. We aim to understand how practices related to production, distribution, reuse, and technological interaction developed over time, and how these aspects relate to broader historical processes such as mobility, acculturation, economic centralization, urbanization, and state formation. On this slide, you can see the main projects the lab is currently involved in. Geographically, the projects cover a wide area from the central and eastern Mediterranean all the way to Western Asia, essentially across the old world. Chronologically, work spans from the late Chalcolithic to the Hellenistic period, with some recent expansions in earlier and also later times. In the table below, I have summarized the key information from these projects to highlight the connecting threads that run through them. So the organization of production in relation to broader socioeconomic and political transformation, to summarize the true core of the lab throughout all these projects. And for instance, in late Chalcolithic Mesopotamia, we are investigating the emergence of craft specialization and mass production, especially in connection with early state formation and increasing socioeconomic inequality. In Bronze Age Arabia, our attention is on resilient forms of resource management in arid environments, including innovative recycling practice. For late Bronze Age Cyprus and Italy, we are constructing trans-Mediterranean exchange networks and consumption practices during a period of mounting instability that then led to the broader collapse in the whole Mediterranean basin. In Iron Age and Archaic Italy, as well as the Black Sea region, our attention shifts to overseas trades, technical innovations like fast wheel, and processes of knowledge transfer, particularly in the context of recolonization. And finally, in the Hellenistic Ephesus, we are studying workshop organization in a highly globalized context characterized by industrial-scale production and named producers. I would like to conclude to briefly present some results from one of these projects where a multi-praxis approach proved particularly successful. The focus is on the late geometric and archaic pottery assemblage from the sanctuary of Themisemera, located on the high plain of Luzi at 1,000 meters above sea level in the northern Peloponnese. The site is remote in its location, yet well connecting within its broader regional context, also thanks to this sanctuary, which was very important. This region presents particular challenges for provenance studies due to its geologically homogeneous landscape, where we have similar raw materials overlaid large areas. As a result, distinguish local products from imports is often difficult. My main goal here was to identify a reliable local reference group, so I focused on a specific class of vessels documented exclusively at Luzi, the so-called pseudo-pyxids, small defunctionalized containers deposited in ritual context. As expected, in such a uniform geological setting, thin section petrography was of limited use. The pseudopyxids are made from microfabrics dominated by radiolarite fragments common throughout the region and thus not diagnostic of specific provenance. However, these ritual miniature vessels stood out in other ways. Their bulk geochemical composition shows felsic affinities. They were shaped using the wheel coiling technique and painted with manganese-based pigment. Other notable technological features include excess clay relative to vessel height, uneven wall thickness, pronounced asymmetry in all three dimensions, and painted lines which are irregular spacing, orientation, and also size. And these characteristics, combined with also the miniature scale of the vessel, are recognized in ethnographic and cognitive studies as signs of underdeveloped motor and cognitive skills, suggesting they may have been crafted by children. This interpretation could be supported by the frequent presence of quite small fingerprints on exterior surfaces and under the bases. Looking now at a production that is not typologically technologically distinctive, such as the pseudopixutes, namely hands-made cooking pots, we observe here instead a variety of paste recipes under the polarizing microscope, which potentially align with the local geology. But as we said, the geology is quite homogeneous over a large area. Despite their differences in terms of recipes, they share common textural features known to enhance thermal performance, in particular a high frequency of large tabular inclusion. Chemical analysis shows that some of these spots are indeed local, as they overlap in composition with the pseudopixates, while others non-local, pointing to production in different locations. Interestingly, the cooking pots exhibit consistent use-wear patterns, as you can see on the left, regardless of origin. So we see soot and oxidized patches along the upper exterior, while the interiors remain largely unaffected. And this suggests they were used for boiling liquids or semi-liquids like soup, rather than for dry cooking methods such as roasting or frying. So in summary, although the cooking pots may have originated from various places, some local, others brought in from surrounding areas, they were likely used in situ within the sanctuary, probably in the context of ritual activities. So to conclude, this study demonstrates how multi-proxy life cycle approaches can shed light on patterns of production, technological behavior, and ritual use, while also highlighting the sanctuary's regional appeal. I would like to thank you all for your attention, and please don't hesitate to get in touch. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish you all the best in your research. Goodbye.